Okay, so I'm starting week 2 now. I've just finished week 1. My week this week has probably been not too busy, but here at the clinic it's starting to build up a bit in my own diary. So we've just started the 12-week gym challenge as well. So we're getting people in for consultations, we've got health screenings, we've got the classes themselves which have just started. One of my biggest concerns when I started the mentorship was that I'd probably have a little bit too much on and that wouldn't actually find the time to do my mentorship. But week 1's been absolutely fine. It probably took me about 4 days, just doing a couple of hours a day, and it was fairly easy. Pretty straightforward from some of the stuff that Dave was saying and Shane. It kind of followed on a little bit from the pre-course stuff as well, and we went into talking about the subjective assessment, and we did some stuff on internal and external motivators, so finding out the real reason why people are coming to you. And most of the time people will say because I've got back pain or because I've got pain in my knee or whatever that is, but you've got to actually kind of break it down, ask them questions where you can find out that the real reason why they come in is because it's stopping them from running and socialising with their friends, that kind of thing. We also looked at things like being able to then put the end result into a timeline and then work out the timeline, which would also coincide with the rehab, and then break it down as to how they're going to achieve that at the end, and being able to explain that properly as well is, I think, is quite important. So yeah, that's about everything, and then I'm looking forward to week 2. So just from looking over at week 2, it actually looks quite lengthy, so I'm quite nervous to see if I can actually fit this in with my diary or not. I'm probably going to go over the week, but I guess it don't really matter. So week 2 is about the objective assessment for the lower limb. I'm probably a little bit nervous about this, to be honest, because when we did it at uni, I don't know if anybody else did it exactly the same, but we kind of split it down into like a list of things that we needed to tick off when you're going through the assessment, and I think when it's in that form you're too busy worrying about whether you're going to get that one done or not, and what you're actually looking for instead. So I'm hoping to kind of become a little bit more confident in this, and I definitely think that it'll help going forwards with like the upper limb, which is definitely something that I'm not looking forward to going over because it's definitely a weakness of mine.
So we're just going to do some of the passive assessment for the lower limb. So I think the key thing with your passive assessment, Sarah, is just basically what you're looking for really. And all thinking when I'm doing the passive assessment is what's lengthening. So as I'm bringing you into hip flexion here, and again, you're getting a little bit tight towards the top, what do you feel there?
It's like hurt in the front.
Like a pinch in the front of the hip, cool. So now my thought process is what needs to lengthen that maybe is contributing to that pinch of the hip. So again, if we think of the hip joint, we're going to have the ball of the femur, we're going to have the socket of the hip, and as the hip's going into flexion, that ball and socket's going to have to move. Does that make sense? Now, if that's pinching at the front, I'm going to be thinking there's something posterior to that at the back that maybe isn't lengthening very efficiently. Does that make sense? Now, obviously, if that's not lengthening well at the back, that possibly is going to contribute to that pinch at the front. Okay? Now, I'm not going to read just into this assessment on its own. I'm going to have something else from the history. I'm going to have something from my generic objective. That's all going to kind of point me towards this as well. Does that make sense? So at this point, as I'm getting maybe towards here, I'm going to be thinking maybe like adductor magnus, hamstrings need to be able to lengthen. As I get higher towards the top, again, the deeper tissues now, like the posterior hip capsule, the posterior pelvic floor, all of these tissues need to be able to lengthen as we get to this end range. Does that make sense? So Sarah's definitely got a little bit of stiffness there, and they're the tissues I'd be considering at this point. Again, internal rotation, we're going to need a lot of length for adductor magnus here. How does that feel? Do you get a pinch with that as well?
Yeah.
More at the outside. Okay, cool. And then relax and then going the opposite way. Nice, how does that feel? And again, range-wise with those two, she's not too bad. So again, the big thing for me there at the moment is just getting you into flexions a little bit stiff. Again, for the knee, so again, knee, we've got flexion. Again, pretty good. How does it feel? Again, same thing here. If I'm getting somebody with a posterior pinch, with a pinch at the back of the knee, I'll be thinking something anterior not lengthening very well, okay? Now, obviously, we're gonna have our pathologies as well. If we've got like a meniscus or something like that, that we'll rule out with our special tests. But if all that's clear, I'm gonna be thinking probably anterior knee capsule or quads, distal quads aren't able to fully lengthen in this position, okay? Extension then, same thing. I wanna make sure all the hamstrings and popliteus tissues behind the knee are able to lengthen fully, okay? Now, same thing, if I'm getting you to this point, and you're already getting restricted, I'm probably thinking more quad, because the capsule hasn't really had to lengthen yet. Same with the hip capsule. If they're getting restricted from here, I haven't really moved the femur far enough to really get any length through the hip capsule yet. That's going to happen at the end. So depending on where the movement happens, that's gonna give me clues of what's tight. Another way I can check the quads is if I get you onto your front. So you go onto your front. I'll do the other leg just for the sake of the camera, but as I'm bringing you into knee flexion here, again, if you're struggling from here, I'm definitely going to be thinking quad, okay? Now, if you're good on your back, but then I get you onto your front and you're a lot poorer, can you see how that's going to indicate the quads a little bit more? Because we're going to have length in the rec fem now a little bit more at the hip because you're an extension, so now we need a bit more length in the demand through the quads. Does that make sense? So onto your back again. Then the last thing I suppose for the passive assessment is, or for the hip anyway, is going to be adduction, abduction. So abduction, same thing, I'm just bringing you out to the side. Yeah, you can get a bit of a pull there. What are you feeling? A little cool. So again, Sarah's feeling something crampy wise up here. Again, I'd expect it to feel a stretch into the adductor. So something's happening up here. Again, what needs to lengthen? So we might have a shortening issue up here, which I can confirm with some other tests. But in terms of the passive assessment, I'm thinking something here medially can't lengthen, whether it's the adductor group or something else. Abduction, the same thing. So if I get you to bring your leg this way, so that's going to be the same thing, but that's going to be lengthening then through the hip. Okay, so all the time basically, in case you haven't picked it up already, I'm just thinking what tissues need to lengthen with that movement. The ankle I don't really check too much passively. I'll probably do like just a generic little movement with it, just into dorsiflexion, plantarflexion, inversion, eversion, but I think our functional ankle assessments get a lot more valuable information from, so I don't spend too much time on the ankle with the passive assessment. So I think the key points to remember from that are what's lengthening, what symptoms is it reproducing, and what part of the movement is it restricted, or what part of the movement is it bringing on symptoms. Does that make sense? So obviously at this point, we're not going to have that much length through the hip capsule. It's probably going to be a lot more hamstring glute. Does that make sense? As I get to the top, then I'm thinking more the deeper structures around the joint, like the hip capsule.
The knee as well, so more end range is more capsule.
Exactly, yeah. So if I'm bending you from here and by mid-range you're already getting stiffness, I might have a bit of capsule, but I'm definitely more suspicious of the quad. Does that make sense? And if it's all fine up to here and then you just get a bit of pain towards the end, now I'm thinking more towards the capsule, because there's more lengthening demand with the capsule, the more into flexion we go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And that's pretty much it for the passive assessment. It's really, really simple. All I'm really thinking is what needs to lengthen.